Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to my vlog for today. So for the last I think week or two I've been putting out a Q&A request and asking you guys for your questions just so that I'd have a chance to answer any questions that you guys have. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do today. I have them all written down. And so if you're new here, my name is Amy. Welcome. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe below, and I will go ahead and get into your guys' questions now. So the first one I got was, is there another step you're planning to take if IVF does not work? And so currently, my husband and I have talked about this many times. Before we did IVF, we discussed options. We discussed IVF, we discussed IUI, we discussed adoption, and really the way it panned out was that because where we live, it is extremely expensive to adopt, and it is also a very, very long wait list. We decided that we would either adopt or do IVF, and in the end we chose to do IVF. That is where our hearts led us to go, and so that's what we decided to do. So at this present time we have no plans to do anything other than the IVF. We don't plan on adopting. There still is the chance that potentially we may do surrogacy, but that would still be with our embryos. So it would be with our embryos that we have in the freezer. We think, I can't say for certain right now guys, because you just don't know where you're going to be in the future, but we think after this IVF cycle, if none of our remaining 5 embryos take, we will probably close this chapter in our life. We have been trying to have a child now for 5 years. It'll be probably 6 or 7 by the time we're done with these embryos, and it's very hard emotionally, it's very hard on your marriage, and it's just at some point we would like to close the chapter and move on, or move forward, I should say, with life and enjoy life. So that's where we're at right now. We won't be stopping anytime soon though, because I have the 5 embryos. It will take a while for us to go through them all. I asked my fertility specialist at my last appointment if surrogacy was something that I should be thinking about, and she said she did not feel at this present time that it was. So we haven't really discussed it or thought about it. I have had friends come forward and offer, so who knows, but right now if this last IVF cycle does not work, that will probably be the end of our chapter for trying to have children. The next one was, knowing what you know now regarding infertility, would you go back and change anything? The answer to this is no, I probably wouldn't. I feel like we've done everything that we could have possibly done. I feel like if we did not try or did not do IVF, I would always have regrets. So not at this time. The only thing I might have changed is I might have started the process earlier. So Corey and I did start trying to have children before we were married, but only by maybe 6 months or so. And so if I would have known, I knew it was going to be difficult, which is why we did start a bit before marriage, but if I would have known that it was going to be this lengthy of a journey, I probably would have started a few years before I did, honestly, because we've known that we were going to get married very early in our relationship, and so we could have started earlier. But you know, I didn't expect it to be this long of a journey. So I did the best I could with what I was giving at the time, and so there's not a whole lot I would change. I would have liked to have had a more successful first IVF cycle, but I wouldn't have known what to do to make that happen without going through my first cycle that had poor outcomes. So it's hard to say. The next question would be, what is it like trying to conceive after a loss? So we had tried to conceive for 2.5 years when I got pregnant the first time with Calvin, and I'm very proud to say that I was very low stress in those months. Like, I had some stressful moments, but I was very laid back, very blasé about it. We would just I never took ovulation test or anything like that. My doctor recommended to do the baby dance, so have sex every second day for a 2-week period. So that's what we did for basically 2 years. And it wasn't consuming, it didn't take over my life, it was just something that we did. It was kind of fun at the start, and so that's kind of how that went. And then after I lost Calvin, it became very, very, very stressful, like the most stressful thing I've ever gone through. So after we had Calvin, we were told we had 6 months to try naturally, so it was OPKs every month, like ovulation test for those of you guys that don't know what that is. And then it was basal body temperature every morning, it was supplements, it was trying certain lubrications, it was drinking certain teas, it was no drinking, no caffeine. It was just very planned. It was every second day for probably 16 or 17 days out of the month. It was taking pregnancy tests too early. It was just extremely stressful. It was very hard on myself, especially. It was hard on my relationship. As you guys know, my husband works as a fisherman, and he has like sometimes 26-hour days, 22-hour days. He sometimes has to go away for days at a time, and I was always resentful or bitter at him if he had to go away in the window, and so it was very difficult. Once we switched to IVF, it was difficult in a different way, whereas it was a lot of anxiety because you're always waiting and waiting and waiting for results for this and waiting for results for this, waiting to find out how many embryos you have, waiting, and that's very anxious. The other thing though about IVF is once we moved on to IVF, the first bit thought I could control things, but then I very quickly learned that you have no control over anything when you do IVF. So it's still really stressful, but in a different way. It's not as stressful. It's not as stressful on our relationship or any of that stuff. It's more just anxiety provoking, always waiting to see if things are going to work out or not. The next question is, how did you recover emotionally regarding your stillbirth and your failed transfers? So, regarding my stillbirth, I don't know that anyone necessarily recovers emotionally from that. I still have a lot of baggage and emotional stuff to sort through when it comes to Calvin. I wouldn't say I necessarily have recovered, to be honest. It's been almost 2 years. I still have some pretty debilitating anxiety and some pretty severe depression. I have a hard time leaving my house unless I'm going for work or to walk my dog, but to go out for social things, I have a difficult time doing that. It causes me a lot of anxiety to leave my house, the comfort of my home. Again, unless I'm working, for some reason that doesn't seem to bother me, but I think it's because I have to go to work and I have to make money if I want to do IVF. I don't know. Initially, when I first had my stillbirth, it was YouTube channels like this that helped me. I watched tons and tons and tons of YouTube channels of other women going through it, and that was helpful. I tried to read a lot. I got a lot of books from the library on stillbirth and grieving. I tried that. That helped in the initial days, weeks, and months, I would say. For probably the first 6 months I was reading. I have run out of all the books to read on stillbirth, so I don't do that as much anymore. Talking about it, this channel helps me, and yeah, I don't know, like I said, that I've 100% recovered from that. I did go to a stillbirth and infant loss support group for, I think, once a month for maybe 4 months, and it was helpful in the beginning, but it ended up causing me a lot more turmoil because what happened in my stillbirth group was that there was, I think, 6 of us in there, and I believe 5 out of the 6, so all the other girls ended up getting pregnant, and so that was hard for me. And so that kind of brought up more emotions, and that group ended up actually getting canceled because basically everybody else was pregnant, and it kind of turned into a pregnancy after loss group, which I'm sure is very difficult, but it wasn't really the spot for me. So the person that guided it actually called me and basically said that she was starting a new round with new ladies. So that's kind of why that ended, which was a little hurtful, but that's how it is. And yeah, I don't know that I have necessarily recovered. I think it's a constant process of trying to heal, and I think it goes on probably for the rest of your life, to be honest. So, but I am doing okay. I definitely have some really bad moments. I wouldn't say I have completely kind of done all the necessary things that I need to do to help that healing process. I'm kind of waiting for my IVF journey to not be so crazy and hectic, and so that I can go see a psychologist. I have already seen a psychiatrist who has recommended some medication that I have decided not to go on just because I'm trying to conceive. Not that there's anything wrong with that. There's tons and tons of medication for anxiety and depression that you can use while you're pregnant and trying to get pregnant. It's just with my scenario with Kelvin, it's not something that I am comfortable doing. And I feel like I'm managing without for now, but at some point I probably will go on something. I have not yet gone to a psychologist to do some talk therapy, which I really do think I need to do. However, I don't feel like doing that while I'm doing IVF is a good idea. I don't feel like digging up all that stress and baggage and emotion would be good for me while I'm in a cycle, as I'm trying to stay as positive and as kind of happy as I can be throughout my IVF journey. So I think though, when the time comes and my IVF journey is over, whether that be I run out of embryos or whether that be I get pregnant, I might look into that. But for now, I'm just kind of coping on my own. I'm doing okay, but I do have some bad days, and I definitely do have some residual anxiety and depression that is there every day. So I hope that answers your question. The recovering from a failed transfer, I find, is almost like a loss in itself. I have tried everything. I've been super positive and thought for sure the transfer was going to work and had it fail, and I've also been kind of hesitantly positive, so more guarded with my feelings on once I do a transfer. And they both suck when they fail, let's be honest. For me, what I do is I usually take the day or two to just feel whatever I'm feeling. So be angry, and usually it's angry and pissed off and irritable and cranky. It doesn't usually come out as sadness in the beginning, and then the next day some sadness sets in and stuff. So I usually give myself about a week to feel what I need to feel, and that usually consists of all kinds of different emotions. And then it usually kind of results in me going, I can't do it anymore, I'm not doing another cycle, I just can't, it's too hard, I don't want to, I'm giving up, I just can't. And then usually after about that week point, I start to come around and I start thinking about, okay, what can I do next? It's time to try to go forward. I have these embryos, I cannot waste them. So pick yourself up and just do it, girl. Just do it, girl. That's what we do in infertility. We get knocked down and we get the fuck back up. It's crazy. People that go through infertility are so strong. It's amazing. Like, all you ladies, it's amazing. So I pick myself up, and then slowly as time goes on, I start to get more optimistic for the next step and the next transfer. And the last question is a tricky one. I feel like they were all kind of tricky, and I might not have direct answers for all of them. But the next one is, how do you deal with the hurt when you see other people getting pregnant or having babies? So this one is probably one of the hardest ones to answer because I wouldn't say I do deal. So when you're going through this, pregnancy announcements are just difficult. When other people have their babies, it's difficult. It's not to say that you're not happy for people. It's not to say that, you know, you're malicious in any ways. It's just hard when you see everybody else getting it, especially when it comes easy and you're not. But the thing is, it's not their fault. And the other thing is, you don't really know what people are going through. Like, how am I to know from a Facebook announcement that somebody hasn't already had losses or miscarriages or had a struggle or been trying for however long? So you don't know. So I try not to get that way, but it's definitely there. You can't deny it. It's there. It's normal. I think we all feel that way. And so I just take a minute to feel what I need to feel, and then I kind of try to move forward and move to happiness for that person. And it usually comes, and there's always a little piece of me that is jealous, and it's always going to be that way. But it is what it is. And I think, you know, when I hopefully finally get to where I want to be and have my healthy baby, I hope that this struggle will be worth it. And, you know, your time will come, hopefully, and you just gotta, I don't know. I had a friend ask me recently what's the best way to tell me that they're pregnant or tell me that someone else is pregnant. Is it better to tell you in person before the Facebook announcement goes out? Is it better not to? Would you rather just see it when you're scrolling through your Facebook? And there's really no necessarily better way or time. I will say I like to find out when I'm by myself, so a text or even the Facebook announcement I find is better than an in-person telling, because when you tell somebody in person, you kind of have to fake it, that, you know, or you have to push, I shouldn't say fake it, that's the wrong word. You have to push the sadness down and let the happiness out, which is fine, but it's harder than when you find out and you're alone and you can feel some sadness in the moment and then process it and then move forward, opposed to when someone tells you in person. I mean, you can't be sad or anything, so you have to kind of push that down and then let the happiness come through, which is there either way, but you need that to be the main thing. The first initial reaction that comes out needs to be your happiness, which isn't always the first reaction that you would naturally have. So when you're alone, you have a minute to kind of be like, oh, okay, and just feel that initial sadness and then process it, and then and then process it, and it will go away, and then the happiness that you have for that person can kind of come through. And that's the best case scenario, rather than having to shadow your sadness with happiness because people are there and watching, and then later go home and have to sort through all these feelings that you feel. I find it's just better when you're alone. The only thing that I can say about that is feel the hurt that you feel when other people get pregnant and have babies. Process it, feel it. You need to feel it to eventually let it go. You can't just push it aside, push it aside, push it aside. It will always come out that way. You need to feel it, process it, and then for me, it usually does go away. It might creep up every once in a blue moon if you're having a hard day or something. It will creep up, feel it again, let it go, and that's kind of what I do. And then when I do that, usually the happiness way overrides the pain or the sadness that I feel. So that would be my best tip for that, but that's a hard one. Try not to feel guilty for feeling that way, because I think we all feel that way. And yeah, that's kind of the best answer I have for that one, because it is tricky. And that was basically all the questions I got for this time. I will do another Q&A if you guys want, or in a little bit, and that way I can answer any of your guys' questions and interact with you guys more. I love interacting with you guys. I love your comments, and I love those of you that have me on Instagram. I will put my Instagram handle below. So at Amy's, AMYS _TTC journey. And you can add me there. I always usually put stories up and more recent information up there and post. And if you want to continue to follow along on my journey, that would be great. If you're new here, welcome. Feel free to subscribe and comment and like this video below, and I will see you guys next week.